Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good fun topic. Let's do it. What's the most bizarre thing you have ever seen? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. This is a bit hard to explain, but I'll try, because it was effing bizarre. In the town where I grew up, there's this big two-lane bridge that can open up, where part of the bridge is raised up to almost a 90-degree angle, so the ships and boats can go through. The open bit of the bridge leaves a small gap that becomes smaller as the bridge closes to allow road traffic. I was about 9 and standing there right at the gap, waiting with my bike for the bridge to close. So this pigeon lands right in the gap, looking for food, I guess, with its head down the gap. As the bridge closes, which it does quite slowly, the pigeon stays with about half its body head first down the gap and then gets effing squashed by the bridge closing. As it gets more and more squashed, I see its ass, vagina, I'm no expert on pigeon anatomy, becoming more and more red. And finally, just as the body of the pigeon disappears and the gap closes completely, an egg comes out and is the only thing left just laying there in the road. That shit taught me a life and death lesson and taught me not to F around with bridges. An ambulance speeding down the Vegas Strip near Mandalay Bay. The ambulance flew by, swerving back and forth, and started driving in the median. It suddenly stopped like it was an action movie and skidded to a halt. The back door swung open and a paramedic ran out, ran in a circle, and hopped back in, and they took off driving just as crazy with the lights and sirens blaring. Also, sitting in an airport on the way to my grandfather's funeral, my family and I were super upset and depressed when all of a sudden an old woman on crutches just started running full speed and waving the crutches like she was rowing a boat. She just flew by and my family and I just broke into laughter. So weird. Brought some needed levity. Homeless people fighting over a sandwich on a train. One guy just kept punching and eating a sandwich after each punch. The other one grabbed the sandwich and started wailing on the other, and then also began eating vigorously while punching. The sandwich was consumed, and they sat down calmly like nothing happened and went to sleep. Hugely obese woman riding a scooter in Walmart with a very skinny man squeezed into the basket. I could only assume this was a type of fetish. I had a rescued rosy boa for a few years. Guy found her at a construction site way back in the day. She was injured, portion of the tail clipped off. He got her healthy and kept her till he was moving out of state. Being wild, she never adopted to frozen mice. I kept feeding her live. One week, she just ignores the mouse. I kept it alive in a box for a week and reoffered. She didn't feed. Third week, tried a different mouse. Bam. Next week, went back to that mouse. No dice. As an experiment, I was a teen at the time. I would never do this now. I left the mouse overnight in the tank. I left it some bread to eat. Next morning, they were chilling at the water bowl together side by side. So I dropped in a second mouse. Bam! She wrapped up before it even hit the dirt. They lived together for about 2 months. I just kept feeding the mouse. They slept together. Then one feeding day, she missed and hit her friend. Didn't eat it, immediately wrapped up on the second prey item so hard it popped. Then just kind of laid next to her friend till I took it out. She didn't eat for a month after. I swear the snake was depressed. Yeah, I mean, that snake had a buddy for whatever reason, and probably was depressed. Killed its friend. I was hiking in the Rockies and saw a mountain goat. It approached until it was about 30 meters away. The goat then did a backflip, gave me an upwards head nod, and walked away. In a pub in Oxford with friends, there's a posh-looking Indian family celebrating their son's graduation. He was still in his gown. Someone on another table near them said something about the son wearing the wrong gown for his degree or college or something. All hell suddenly breaks loose. The mother slaps the guy who made the comment really hard across the face. Graduate's son starts punching his friend in the face. The brother runs over to the bar and slaps the barmaid. The father picks up one of those VHS recorders, this was the 90s, and starts filming. The two students run for the toilets and lock themselves in, and the family then starts on the bar staff, with the father filming all the time. Bar staff eventually manages to push the family out of the pub and lock the door. Family are outside for at least another 5 minutes shouting about how they will sue everyone, Father has camera pressed up against a window, filming everyone in the pub. Fight in itself wasn't bizarre, but I can't emphasize enough how respectable the family looked. Would never expect them to flip out like that. Went to New Orleans with my two best friends for my 21st birthday. We were sitting in the park by the Mississippi River next to the aquarium, finishing our daiquiris and smoking a joint low-key in broad daylight. Out of nowhere, at least 500 men, all dressed in red evening gowns, come running through the park from the direction of the French market, gather around a statue in the park, jump up and down, then chant for about a minute, then take off running again past the aquarium. After seeing this, I look at one of my friends who looks me in the eye and says, "Please tell me you saw that too." I wish I had the presence of mind to say, "See what?" But I didn't. The last night of a festival, Devon, UK. It was a rainy one, and the main arena was a quagmire. I went to the bar and saw a crowd gathered round a Turtis portable toilet and two unhappy-looking paramedics. I got closer and saw that a girl had passed out in the loo. She was on her knees in a mud soup, sound asleep with her head on a pillow of shit and toilet paper that was rising out of the loo like a fecal volcano. The paramedics were tossing a coin to see who had to go in there and get her out. So yeah, shit pillow. I can only imagine what she smelled like. I saw a UFO UAP when I was about 14 in the late 2000s. I was riding in the back of my parents' SUV and we were heading toward Fort Worth, Texas on I-35. I was looking out the back window at a dusk sky. The best way to describe it was like looking at an invisible disc, like classic flying saucer, that I could only see where the sun was reflecting off of it in a line or crescent. It was on its side, I guess, like a flying saucer, but like the round shape was vertical and not horizon. It rotated 180 degrees along its horizontal axis, equator, and that was why I could see it reflecting sunlight. Then it was completely invisible again. It happened so fast, it took me a few minutes to comprehend what I saw. I didn't really tell anyone for a long time because those I told didn't believe me. So I will add that I am an aviation enthusiast. I've loved planes since I was very young, and I have a bachelor's degree in physics. I don't have any idea how it could be possible to make or control something disc-shaped that can be stationary while rotating while also being invisible. My best guess would be controlling gravity somehow, which we don't currently know how to do. Later, around 2017, I saw the Navy's gimbal video, and the way it rotates in the video was very similar to the movement I saw. But, like I said, this thing was basically invisible or cloaked, except I saw light reflecting off of it while it rotated. Guy in my old neighborhood used to walk around with a large rubber fish. It had a guitar strap on it. He would pretend to play it like a guitar. Did this for years on and off. You could tune a guitar, but you can't tune a fish, I guess. Another was at work. A mentally ill local would harass people. She came to my job with a mirror, showed it to me, and said it took my soul, and I have a week to live. This was in the late 90s. I guess she was out of magicka and needed a visit to Whiterun for potion. It's funny that you mentioned that because when I started reading this, I thought of that old Riddler joke. What's the difference between a piano, a can of tuna, and glue? Do you know it? You can tune a piano, but you can't piano a tuna. After a cold snap in Florida, there were a shit ton of iguanas scattered on my street. Had to dodge them when driving. Before this, I figured there were 3 or 4 in the neighborhood, but were at least 50 of them on the street. We have a 74-year-old coworker who's been eligible for retirement for the last 10 years and refuses to. Washes coffee cup and other dishes in our shop solvent tank. He's done this more than once, and yes, we have brought it up to our supervisors. Standing in line at a convenience store behind a pair of EMTs, a college student and a father in his 40s with 2 kids. I witness in quick succession, the college student nod to the dad nod to the kids nod to the cashier nod to the EMTs, followed by them all leaving together through a service exit. I was told to go to the next register. I was in my delivery truck at a red light with 6 other lanes of traffic. Being the tallest vehicle, I could see all the other drivers. An SUV also stood over the traffic quite close to me. I had a very good view into and across this vehicle. In the SUV was a full-bodied woman. Between this woman's front seats, propped up like an e-brake, was a foam baseball bat, like something you'd get from a fan appreciation night. She had the hitting end between the seats and gripping end up. Her right hand flowed up and down the shaft, teased over the knobby handle, pumped just under the handle, stroking, pumping, teasing. I began to wish I was a foam baseball bat. She looks up and we make eye contact. Thumbs up? She smiles, licks her lips in a full circle, slowly, then proceeds to bring the bat up to her lips and suckle on the knobby end. The light changed, and she drove out of my life forever. I saw an old man with an orange-pinkish tone of skin in my neighborhood. I was at shop buying something. Suddenly I looked at him. He was very old, with barely any body hair. We looked for a second in each other's eyes. His eyes were completely black, without any white part of eye. Then he shouted at me like an old prick and I left. Never saw that guy again. 10 years later, I'm no longer a child, but I still wonder, what was that? I've used the Parisian metro for 4 years, so from magician raven lady, main character, to empty beer bottle juggler, recurrent extra, I've seen a lot. I'm under the impression the New York subway has more to offer, but I haven't been there yet. I work at a concert venue. There's a lot of weird stuff left over when everyone leaves. Probably the weirdest was a wig with a pile of fresh broccoli on it. As far as I know, the venue does not sell broccoli. Someone brought it in just to leave it on top of their wig. A few years ago, the spouse and I went out for dinner in our little college town. My bestie says, "Look up." So I looked up at the night sky, and the stars were blotted out by a shape, much like the damn Nike logo, sitting utterly still in the sky. It was as big as a blimp as far as we could tell, simply by the stars being blotted out. There were a few red lights along the top edge of the triangular shape. It just sat there in the sky. We went running around the buildings trying to get a clearer look. Between one building and another, it simply disappeared. On the Pennsylvania Turnpike, I watched a semi pull into the high-speed lane without noticing that there was already a small car in the lane. The car went underneath the semi. A minute or two later, the car pulled out between the wheels of the still-moving semi with its sheared-off roof dangling from the passenger side. Can you imagine the nerves of steel and presence of mind it would take to continue driving after your roof is clipped off and escaping death in this manner? I was sure I was going to have to call the state police to report a gruesome death. Nice. I mean, the sad thing is that we can witness gruesome deaths by accident or on purpose if you drive enough. But what you saw was even more rare. That was awesome. I saw a Millennium Falcon-shaped aircraft fly over my house at around 3:30 a.m. No lights on it, flying low, and it had a low vibrational sort of sound to it. If you've seen Star Wars, you know that the propulsion exhaust on the back of the Millennium Falcon is blue. Kind of looks like plasma. Well, this looked just like it, but it was purplish, kind of magenta. I don't know what that was, but it was crazy. I also saw something that looked like a giant city move behind the moon once. That was nuts as well. Questions welcomed. Has anybody else seen anything like this? I grew up in London in the 1990s. We used to see a man walking around the area we lived in who had trousers made out of plastic shopping bags. And each time we saw him walking around, there would be more bags added to his trousers, would be bigger and bigger each time. I used to call him Bagman. Quite nightmarish, really. Was on a coach bus traveling up the coast of Australia. Fell asleep at night and woke up early in the morning to the bus slowing down. I was in the front seat, so I opened my eyes and looked out through the windscreen to see it was all foggy, and there were 3 miniature ponies galloping down the road in front of the bus. Thought I was dreaming at first, but then the bus driver started honking his horn to get them to move. I'm guessing they'd escaped from a farm or something. Weirdest thing to wake up to. I once saw a woman start walking up an escalator. There were 3 she could use, 2 of which were going up, and the third was off, so she started walking up that one. Then the train upstairs came in, and a crowd of people started streaming down the one escalator they could use. The woman kept walking up, fighting the tide of people whose morning she was possibly effing over. because she had to get her steps in. One time I was riding in the back of a station wagon with my sister in those seats they used to have that faced backwards toward oncoming traffic. We were just sitting and watching the cars and people behind us when a car pulled up behind us at a stoplight. It looked like a normal car with a couple in the front seat, except all of a sudden the passenger's eyes started glowing red, like bright Christmas light red. It looked like two big evil lights. We screamed, of course, and our parents turned around, but they couldn't really see, and it didn't matter because his eyes turned back into normal eyes again in a matter of seconds. It was so freaky. I have no idea. Maybe it was a realistic ventriloquist doll with glowing eyes or a mask? I don't know, but it scared the bejeebus out of me.